Good evening, my listeners from all over the world. It's your favorite dictator here. I have to say to you, I am very, very pleased that I am now the funniest dictator in the world since Donald Trump is no longer president of the United States. I have to say I have anything in common with President President Biden. I have nothing in common with him whatsoever. I am very, very angry that he has not invited me to his inauguration. I think that is a little bit of racism on African countries. No African leader has been invited to the inauguration, and I was reluctant to go to Donald Trump's farewell ceremony. So I don't know, some of you I'm sure are still glued. But you know, what really pisses me off about this American inauguration is that we have the president of Uganda who has also been elected. And no one is talking about Uganda. No one is talking about the elections in Uganda, but everyone is going on about America, America, and America. And my plan, as you know, as president of the Republic, is to change that so that we have African countries dominating world politics. That is my lifetime ambition. Now, I don't want to prolong this any further. I have a guest, I call him a very important guest. His name is EJ. He will tell me how to pronounce his Filipino name because I can't pronounce it properly. He works for NextUp and he's the community manager for NextUp. And I have to say to you, NextUp have been very, very instrumental in providing me with a platform to broadcast my presidential aspirations and presidential comedy and presidential public statements. I have done quite a number of projects with NextUp. And especially since this lockdown, they have been very, very useful. And they just don't work with me as president. They work with quite a number of other civilian comedians. So I'm going to be asking EJ lots of questions. And I'm sure he will be pleased to answer this question. So with no further ado, let me introduce you to EJ, who's the community manager for NextUp. How are you, EJ?
I am good, President. How are you? No, thank you so much for inviting me on.
I'm very happy to have you on. I always say to my guests, I'm not disappointed that they haven't got my posters on their wall, but I see you have almost like a ladder, as if you want to escape from this interview already. There's nothing to be frightened about.
At the top of that ladder is a poster review. Don't worry about that.
Really?
It's the highest place in the room. It has to have the highest place in the room. It's got to look down over everything else. Good. That is how it rolls as a dictator, right?
Yeah. So how have you been? How have you been watching the inauguration of the civilian president?
I have. I've been watching that for the last hour or so. It's been interesting. I think everyone I know who's been watching it is waiting for something bad to happen.
Yeah, I have to say I am so disappointed because there is a moment of opportunity. So you know that period where Donald Trump actually stops being president and they're inaugurating the new president-elect. You know, America does not have a president during that period. That, I don't know how many minutes, let's say maybe it's 5 minutes or whatever it is. Someone has access to the nuclear code. That is the time that America should be attacked. And nobody took chance. Nobody took the chance, not even China, not even North Korea. They just sat down there willy-nilly, and I'm disappointed. I'm totally disappointed.
I imagine that most other countries are just waiting for America to blow up themselves in that sense. It's just like, let's see how the shitstorm goes. We don't have to do anything. Let's sit back, let's relax, watch Trump do something insane.
I have a cabinet minister. I sacked him because he became a conspiracy theorist. And he kept telling me, Mr. President, that something is going to happen today in the America inauguration. His view was that President Trump will be on the Air Force plane, and it's very likely that they're going, in short, he was very confident that President Trump will continue to be president and that they will arrest quite a number of people, including Biden, on the day of the inauguration because the elections have been rigged. Hello, Biden has been sworn in. I fired my Minister of Information, but what were the
get rid of that guy? Clearly not got a clue what's happening.
So the things I picked up from the inauguration, I saw that Michelle Obama is back. I saw her with a very lovely outfit. At one point, I thought, wow, is she the one who wants to be vice president. She dressed better than
than Kamala Harris.
than Kamala Harris, who I believe should be in the kitchen cooking for her husband. But that's another thing. That's another thing entirely. But
I did see Bill Clinton falling asleep. It's just it cuts through, the old previous presidents, and just behind Bush, you've just got a shot of Bill Clinton's eyes not opening at any point. And you're just like, ooh.
But don't you? I can't believe that Trump decided not to show up.
He had, you know what? I mean, it's not controversial to say he's probably the most petulant person on the planet, right? Without question. So if he did show up, all cameras would just be sitting on him, watching his face and his reactions to everything. If anything, it's better he didn't show up. Okay. Give the attention to Joe Biden. Let him have that. Biden.
But it's not. This is controversial. But my people tell me it's not Joe Biden that's been elected. It's actually
no. Are they? Are Laughter Republic all QAnon conspiracy theorists?
No, we're not conspiracy theorists. But we know what's happening. We know that it is actually Kamala who is now the president of the United States, because Joe Biden, from our intelligence, is going to be sleeping all the way through the presidency. That's even if he knows that he has been sworn in.
He is technically the oldest president, right?
Look, and this is what is really interesting, EJ. Africa is always constantly criticized for having older presidents. America decides to have Joe Biden as president. And don't tell me, I'm not being ageist in any shape or form, but apart from the fact that America can no longer criticize African nations on how to run elections, don't criticize us when we have older men running for presidency,
No, exactly. I mean, he's what, 78?
He's 78.
78.
He's got 4 years. I don't think he's going to finish his 4-year term.
Well, maybe that's what Kamala Harris is waiting on. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. So
I mean, I'm Filipino. I mean, we've got President Duterte right now. Yes,
my good man, my good friend. But you had Marcos, didn't you?
Friend.
You had Marcos.
Marcos.
Let's talk about Marcos. So so what are you doing in the United Kingdom?
My mum came over to escape people like Marcos.
Seriously?
No. She moved to Lebanon, I think, when she was about 20 to start doing nursing and things like that.
Okay.
And then moved over to the UK sort of beginning of the 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, and since then, pop me out.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was born here. I didn't really have a huge connection back to the Philippines until I guess I got a bit older.
Okay.
Yeah, would spend a couple of years in the Philippines when I was a bit of a kid. Didn't really understand too much, but then would go back kind of every year as a teenager, get to see the family again, and just watch kind of the politics of that place go up and smoke a little bit more each time I went.
Yeah. And so a couple of questions for you. So when you went back, did they treat you like a Filipino, or did they treat you like a British person?
They don't treat me like either. They treat me like an American.
Really? Why?
They call me Americano in a weird kind of way. They call me Americano. I don't know why, but I don't think they registered that I'm British in any way. They're just like, oh, he speaks English, he's American.
Okay.
Because I think that's just the media that they consume there. It's nothing British. It's all American imports, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's no real concept of what being British is. It's like, oh, you speak English, you're American.
Wow.
You're not speaking Tagalog, you're American.
Wow.
And I don't speak Tagalog anyway, which makes it so fucking hard. So hard.
Okay, so they think you're American. And what? And so you obviously went around during the Marcos years, but tell me about your current president, because he's quite he's almost a dictator, isn't he? He's very,
I think he would get on really well. Yeah, I definitely think so. He's one of his kind of big policies is essentially the war on drugs and sort of ending things like corruption and drug usage in the Philippines.
Yeah.
But with an extreme hardline stance.
Yes.
Essentially. So there's no debates. If there's any kind of relation to drugs, you are in prison, you are getting arrested, you are potentially at risk of death. And it is to that level of an extreme, I guess.
Wow.
Which is insane. And I think there was a statistic from, I think, his first year of presidency, and I may be pulling this out of my arse entirely, but there was a statistic, I think, of around 30,000 deaths in his first year alone
Wow.
from his crackdown on drug usage in the Philippines, which is insane. But
Wow. And so
yeah,
that must obviously, because in Britain they always talk about, oh, we want to sort out crime, we want to be
yeah.
tough in crime and the forces of crime and so on and so forth. So the crime rate must be very, very low as a result. Do you think that's actually helping? Is it really, because there's no opportunity to be rehabilitated, is there? It's just
No, but I think that it's strange because I think as the country has kind of grown, it's had corruption sort of throughout. It's always had corruption. I mean, Imelda Marcos's shoes were always like an internationally famous kind of sign of how much money they were taking away. And I think if you speak to someone from the Philippines about Duterte, vast majority of them are really positive about him.
wow.
It's very much he's helping clean up the country. It's discipline, it's structure, it's something that we've never had. And yeah, the majority of people, even my own family, when I speak to them, and obviously I'm coming at it from a completely almost westernized kind of perspective, where I'm seeing death and anything like that as a negative. No, government shouldn't be doing that in any kind of respect. But yeah, if I speak to a cousin of mine, I speak to an aunt, they are for it. They are wanting a sense of security. And the prevailing kind of thought is, if you're not doing anything illegal, it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of mad to kind of talk to them about it because they like how hardline he is. They like how much he swears. They like how much he talks shit to people. Like his sort of interactions with other leaders around the world, they love it because he's ballsy, he's brave, he's proud to be Filipino.
He's almost like Trump, isn't he?
He's Trump. I mean, what was that image? There's a clip of them holding hands, and I can't even remember where that was.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's our Trump, and it's disappointing. So for me, it's so disappointing.
But you see, the what's really interesting is a lot of people criticize Trump and the Filipino president, and a lot of people criticize popular leaders. But my view is that the establishment has failed. That's why people like Trump and the Filipino president can come into power. I mean, I saw David Lammy, he's an MP, and he was comparing Britain with America and saying, oh, I'm really, really pleased that Biden has been appointed and is now elected. We need to do the same in Britain. But surely 79 million people voted for Trump. The number of people, I don't know how many people voted for your Filipino president. Look at what happened in Britain in terms of Brexit. Surely these people, they've tapped into the fact that citizens of these countries are unhappy. And it's a failure. And it's a failure of the policies, isn't it?
Well, this is it. It's like it's 30, 40 years of corruption, mismanagement, 30, 40 years of what I guess is international embarrassment, really, isn't it? And you just, especially if you go back to the Philippines, they just want structure, stability. They just want someone that they can go, this is what's going to happen. And we know that's what's going to happen. And it's all transparently open and out there. Even if it's extreme, they're happy.
And I suspect that your coronavirus in the Philippines, coronavirus is not necessarily an issue. There would have been a complete lockdown.
From what I know, it's because I've not really heard too much about it over there. I think
it doesn't exist.
Genuinely, but I think there's that element of a lot of people are coming forward to say, oh, I've got coronavirus, or I've got this, or I've got that. And I think, especially in that kind of culture, it's not the done thing that if I've got a cough, I'm going to go to the doctors or anything like that. If I've got a cough, I'm going to stay at home, or I'm going to just wait till it passes kind of thing. So there's no real estimate on how kind of widespread it is.
Yeah. And the research that we've done from the Obonjo Medical Institute is that authoritarian regimes are much better at dealing with coronavirus compared to the democratic nations because they're so laid back.
From your experience, that's from your research, yeah?
That is the research my people have provided me from the Obonjo Medical Institute.
No, you know what? Then fine, Duterte's cool. I'll take that. He's got it easy. He's got it sorted. No problem there.
Yeah, but
if you're telling me that, I trust it.
No, you have to believe it. You have to believe. My people will not tell me, I see you have a cough. I hope you haven't got Ebola.
No, I'm actually coming off a COVID bout myself.
Are you serious?
Yes, I am. So last week I was pretty much unable to breathe.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it wasn't the best kind of week, but no, a lot better now. Feeling a lot more sort of ready. I think I was glad to actually get back to doing some kind of work.
Yeah.
Because I think when I wasn't doing anything, I was just kind of lying in bed or kind of walking around. I just felt a little bit worse.
But I'm sorry to hear that. My mom, if it helps, didn't have COVID, but had to take the vaccine. And I was so worried. At one point, I said to myself, I'm a dictator. I shouldn't show any emotions, because I couldn't sleep on Thursday night when she told me and said, oh, son, I'm taking the vaccine. And she actually behaves like a dictator. She said, it's not up for discussion. I just want to let you know, this is my decision.
That's where you get it from. That is actually where you get it from, the president. It all makes sense now. Dictatorship is always hereditary. It always works like that.
Yeah. So you're feeling better now, yeah?
I'm feeling a little bit. I'm glad to hear your mom's gotten the vaccine, though.
Yeah, she has. And, let's talk a little bit about COVID, because there's so many conspiracy theorists out there. People who are not wearing the masks, people who do not believe that COVID is happening. And I've had a few friends who, not many, but quite a few who had them, and I've had one or two who've died as a result of it. I don't believe in conspiracy theorists. I just think I always have this view that they should be the ones should be vaccinated first, or give them some of the. Give them some. You
guys are going to be the guinea pigs for this.
You're going to be guinea pigs so that we can prove to you that this is So my mom is fine. My mom is fine.
Oh, no, I'm glad.
Yeah. So, and I will encourage anyone who's listening, especially who has a health condition, take the vaccine. Wear your masks. Very, very important. It doesn't mean that you've lost your freedom as a result. And anyway, if you're in Laughter Republic, it's no choice. We're not going to get you to vote whether you want to wear your mask or not. You're wearing your mask.
You've got it. It's strapped on. I'm assuming you're first in line when the vaccine gets to Laughter Republic as well, right?
No, I would like my citizens to take it first.
Oh.
Yeah, they're the guinea pigs.
I was going to say you're a lovely leader, and then you just kind of ruined it.
No,
so generous.
I'm not going to behave like the British, where they were proving that the Queen and the Prince Philip had taken the vaccine. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I want to live long. Because unless the only reason why I would take the vaccine is if we produced it. Take it first is if we produced it in Laughter Republic. At the moment, this is produced by Britain and America. And I do not trust
the Viagra people, right?
Yeah, they're not that I need Viagra, but they are the Viagra. They are the Viagra people.
That's all I know Pfizer for, if I'm honest.
Really? You need it?
No question as to why. I don't need to go into that any further, but it is on my mind. It's just something I'm aware of.
I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed because that's not what it's for.
If anyone's getting anyone listening, if anyone's getting the vaccine and thinking it's Viagra, please just check the pack. Just double check.
Obonjo Medical Institute has said that it will not help you if you have sexual problems. It will not help you in any shape or form. You need a better juice from Laughter Republic. So I know that you tell me about how you got into NextUp and what your views are about comedy and where we are at the moment.
Sure, no, glad. So I kind of describe it to guys that NextUp and kind of anyone who asks this question that I'm basically a comedy nerd that got super lucky. So I've been a fan of comedy growing up for years and years and years, and I've watched so many specials and any panel show that was out there, and tried to go to as many live gigs and as many Edinburghs as I could physically afford as a teenager in my early 20s and that kind of thing. But I was just a massive fan. I was just really, really psyched to go to any comedy gig, watch any comics live, and just feel that laughter in the room. There's something really just nice about all of that I absolutely loved going to and seeing. And yeah, when I actually, funny enough, heard about NextUp through Stuart Goldsmith's podcast, The Comedian's Comedian.
Yeah,
I think it was about 3 odd years ago. They'd done a short sponsorship with him, sort of partnership with him, and essentially, he plugged them on one of his episodes, and I just heard it, and I was like, oh. Because I'd actually been working for a number of startups for a couple of years at that point, sort of doing customer engagement and kind of just managing sort of how people and users work and sort of comms and things like that, which is all boring as hell. But yeah, when I heard about Next Up, I kind of found, oh, there's a company that's doing or sort of working in stand-up comedy that I can actually do something with, as opposed to just being a fan where I'm like, oh, excited to be in the room. So yeah, it's going to sound quite sad, but I stalked Next Up for about 2 years.
Wow.
Basically just following anything that they did. I was just keeping an eye out for any job updates, any big announcements, anything like that. And so the moment there was a job offer for a community manager, for basically fitting into something that I could actually do in terms of my skill set, I jumped on it. I instantly, when I saw that, I just applied. I sent quite a sappy cover letter, I'm pretty sure. That was basically like how much I loved it and how much I'd been following them. And yeah, I met the founders, interviewed, got the job. I genuinely do think I'm a comedy fan that just got super lucky and happened to have been doing work that they could benefit from.
So this is confirmation, my friend EJ, that you stalking works. You get what you want.
Stalking works, absolutely. Stalking works. I am.
And one of the things I like about NextUp as well is just I found out about NextUp through a friend called Njambi.
Oh yes, love Njambi.
The brand name, to be honest with you, it's so like Netflix. You know, it's like you really need to think about it. Oh, what is it? Is it Netflix or is it NextUp? It's a very clever brand name. So what does your job entail? Because, you know, you can have all sorts of jobs with titles. What does community manager mean?
Yeah. So it's kind of the easiest way of describing it is I look after the communities that are involved with NextUp. So this is communities being our user base, our members, the people who subscribe and watch all the shows on the platform, as well as comedians like yourself and Jambi, people who we've worked with in the past, and agents as well. So all these kind of different communities, making sure that they're aware of what's happening, how things are going, keeping kind of in touch with the brand and making sure that, you guys get what you need from us as much as we get to work with you guys, and making sure that our users and fans of you guys get to see that all come together. I think for me, like kind of the moment it all kind of ties together is just that moment after a gig. Everyone's really happy, the acts are happy, like everyone's kind of coming out of the show with a smile on their face, and I can kind of just sit back and go, oh, we put that together and it was great, and it was lovely. And I guess my job is to make sure that everyone leaves happy, comes back to us happy. And if there's any problems, I'm kind of on board to fix it, help out as much as I can, and just make sure that everyone knows what's going on.
And it's really interesting how conspiracy theorists would say, just like they've said that actually Trump lost the election, and the way they got Trump to lose the election is to create this China virus to destroy the US economy. So my question to you is that in terms of timing, because it's for those who don't know, NextUp is a comedy channel. You can streamline videos, you can subscribe, and you can watch videos online. And just
check out Mr. President Obonjo's Good Night, Mr. President.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one. And by the way, you called me a comedian. I am a president. I'm not a comedian.
Yes, of course, president first, and then.
But on a serious note, the fact that it's just good timing that because everybody has gone online because of the pandemic, and then NextUp was just positioned in the right market segment to just lift things up. Because like I said, NextUp have saved my presidency actually.
No, but it's honestly really nice to hear. And I think when lockdown first came into play, we instantly knew we need to shift something. We need to pivot in some way. We need to make sure that we're providing similar services and opportunities to kind of anyone that we work with. And so one of the things we did when lockdown kind of first hit was we started really going into the virtual gigs, trying as hard as we can to kind of get that format right, find out what audiences liked, what comics liked, kind of the best approach to give you guys an opportunity to perform to your fans, really. And alongside that, we also did something called Heckle the Virus. It was essentially a big campaign to provide funding to comics whose essentially livelihood had been cut off due to COVID. And so, I think our target was 100K, beyond that, I think, actually. And it's sort of every sort of week, we'd give out 10K to acts and comics who'd essentially applied for it, who needed sort of that extra financial help and support. And yeah, it was something obviously we're super happy to do and really grateful that we were able to do that and be in our position to do that. But also it was great to kind of see that follow on, and like yourself obviously moving into streaming and stuff and moving into more sort of virtual gigs, and loads of other acts have kind of been able to move into that. And a lot of that's come from sort of working with us and helping them sort of get a footing in how that kind of handle works and how best to approach it from either a technical standpoint or a ticketing standpoint. And just, glad that we were able, like honestly, like on a personal level, I'm glad we were able to just help give people another opportunity that when all live gigs are kind of shut down to still do what they do best and still make people laugh. And yeah, we were lucky as hell.
I just want to say to Laughter Republicans around the world and all the listeners, just like Donald Trump, who didn't claim any salary over the last 4 years, I did not claim the Hercu virus, because if I did, I would have distributed it to my people, but I did not claim the Hercu virus. And also, I have not collected any money from the British government in terms of foreign aid. I just want to let you know that, I'm funding all this podcast by self-funding. So no, but it's really wonderful that you've been able to do that for comedians, because as I know, there are quite a number of comedians who were doing this full time and that was their sole income. And so
exactly. I mean, we were thinking about it in sense of, because we got a lot of big comedians as well, like people like Rich Herring, Don French, people who kind of have in the made it category of acts. They were fully wanting to support as well. And I think that was the beauty of kind of the comedy industry and the comedy community. It's people who have reached a position where they can give back, wanting to give back as well.
Yeah. And is NextUp, am I right in saying at the moment, NextUp hasn't got any competitors in terms of streamlining in the UK?
There are other sites where you can stream comedy, but I think in terms of what we provide, in terms of that kind of special experience and kind of the live streams that we're doing as well, I don't think there are many people doing kind of the full package of what we provide, because you can get live streams from quite a few other places. I know there's like Always Be Comedy, Happy Mondays, there are loads of really good sort of weekly comedy nights that are streamed in. But in terms of a full catalogue of 200 plus shows from acts of like from different levels to people who were like Miles Jupp and Andrew Maxwell, to people like who were up and coming like Lauren Patterson, yourself, Maisie Adams. Like I just don't think there's anyone else who kind of provides the same quality of content, the same sort of flexibility and service that we kind of do.
So have you seen an increase in subscribers as a result of the lockdown?
I think that was going to happen anyway, wasn't it? I think everyone moving to online and realizing that, I can still enjoy comedy, even if it's not live, I can still feel like it's live. And that was always a big thing for us. We wanted to make sure all the shows that we had felt like experiences. Okay. And so it worked really well, I think, in terms of gaining subscribers. Obviously a horrible situation, but I think we had an offering that made sense to people. And especially without live gigs, it just, you need to stream comedy, you come to us and we're happy to be there for you.
Okay, one question for you. There's going to be lots of questions, just the way my brain works. That transition from live gigs to actually performing to a virtual gig, it took me a while for me to master that technique. Was that the same for most comedians? And did you offer any support in terms of training or how people make that transition? Because I think, when you're a live act, making that transition to a virtual gig, is quite a challenge.
Oh, definitely. And I think you can always tell someone who's kind of doing it for the first time or so versus someone who's kind of done it for, let's say, 3 to 6 months or something like that. There's a huge difference in, I guess, the approach to that show. It was definitely a sort of a learning curve for a lot of comics and us ourselves in terms of just making sure we were providing as much of this experience of comedy as we possibly could. I think we started out doing quite a lot of, I guess you'd kind of say almost experimental kind of streams on Twitch. It was kind of a great place for us to kind of test different formats, play with different ways of kind of streaming onto other channels and making sure that, if we could find a format that worked and was able to get a lot of traction, we'd obviously move forward with that. And it took a lot of experimenting to find, I guess, a way for people to enjoy gigs and still feel like it was
like a gig.
Live. Yeah, exactly. Because I think the one thing that we really noticed was just that audience noise, that audience interaction, being able to hit responsive laughter, responsive joke, sorry. Like that made a huge difference. Like you can see something on YouTube, like so there's some great streams on places like YouTube, like The Stand and things like that. And I know over Christmas, people like Jason Manford had huge ones. The biggest difference is that live noise from the audience and hearing the response, hearing the reaction, getting the laugh back. Like you can see it when someone's performing, their face lights up because they knew that joke landed. And honestly, that's something that we wanted to make sure. It's like that's the magic in a bottle, isn't it? That's the magic in a bottle moment. You know you've got them and you can kind of carry on going. Make them cry with laughter if you can, kind of thing. That's the one thing we wanted to keep as much as we possibly could, that magic bottle moment of the laughter, the response, the engagement, all of that. And I think we're in a lovely position now where we've kind of nailed it to a good degree. Like all of our gigs are really well run, really smoothly run, technically always really smooth. We do tech sort of run-throughs with all of the acts that we work with. So they're never coming into it completely cold, completely fresh. They always at least know how the setup's going to go. And if there's any kind of tweaking of a show that we think might need to happen because it's virtual, we always let them know about that and try and work with them to kind of refine it until it's something that they're going to be proud of, but also will work for their audience in a virtual setting.
Okay. So at the moment, it's a UK company, isn't it?
UK based, but we do have acts from all over the world. We've got quite a lot of Australian acts as well at the moment.
Okay,
yeah, people like Judith Lucy, Celia Piccola, Tom Ballard, some really good names. Alice Fraser, some fantastic Aussie and New Zealand based comics on there, and some American ones as well that we're slowly gaining more and more of.
What about the African market? Have you considered?
Ooh, we've got a few, but we definitely need more. I think if there's any that you can recommend. You've got any good names, honestly, send them my way. So up for doing some work there.
You mentioned earlier on that when you were talking next up that you were
can we reframe it? when I was following, keeping an eye on...
keeping. You weren't stalking, following. Okay, you weren't stalking, you were following. You had a keen interest.
There you go.
You were just doing some research on your prospective employer. That's what you were doing. But you mentioned, you're a comedy nerd, and you mentioned that you watch live shows, and I am interested to know who are those. And you might not want to say this, but I will demand that you answer. You have no choice. Which comedians did you enjoy watching before you joined Next Up?
Going to be this is so weirdly my first full show that I ever watched was a Marcus Brigstocke show.
Okay.
I think it was a film recording of Planet Corduroy from years and years and years ago, so super old. But in terms of just acts that I'd see like live and around, it was going to be people like Mae Martin, Bando Man, people like that were just sort of on the circuit when I was kind of following and going to live gigs. Harry Hill nights at Moth Club and things like that. Like as much as I could find kind of in my area, I was definitely going to. So those are the acts that were sort of always kind of gigging near and around me at the time.
And who's your favorite comedian?
Oh, honestly, that's impossible for me to answer. I actually don't know. I honestly don't know if I have a favorite comedian because it's just, I have a real love for one-liner comics and one-liner puns and that kind of thing because I love the sort of perfectionist intricacies of just that wordplay and the moving of one word to another. So if I'm gonna say favorite comic right now, I'm in the one-liner sort of mode. I've got to say someone like Mark Simmons at the moment. For me, is someone who I'm loving the work of. I think is absolutely great. It's just a really fun one-liner comic to watch, and just really fun and clever in terms of putting like an hour show can still feel light-hearted, really fun, not laborious. Especially when you consider something like gag after gag after gag. You'd expect it to be. To plateau at some point in the enjoyment, but it just doesn't. And someone like Mark Simmons I find fantastic. Stuff I love, someone like Anna Mann, it's Colin Holt basically, just that sort of
the character comedian.
Exactly. Like there's something really amazing about watching a character comedian who is fully owning it and fully committed and bring the audience into that character. Like that, when you watch it live, it's just an experience. I don't know how to. It's almost a bit like watching, I guess, a drag act, like an amazing drag act. It's they bring you into this. They make you believe it's authentic, it's genuine, and it's entertaining beyond anything else.
My listeners, I have to say this. I asked him a question in terms of who his favorite comedians are. And he mentioned Mark Simmons, and he mentioned a character comedian called Anna. What's the name again?
And a man.
Anna
And a
Man.
man. Yeah.
You can imagine how I feel. This is meant to be my podcast, and he's mentioning other comedians. And also,
I would like to draw your attention to the fact that you called yourself a dictator first.
And you know how it happens. If EJ is not seen after this podcast, you know why. You know extremely well.
In fact, you're my favorite dictator for sure. Sure.
Yeah, it's always interesting to know. So do you feel like, so what used to happen with live gigs is you would have someone who, I'm not suggesting that the best way to describe it, there's someone working at the comedy club and they happen to be the technical engineer, they do all the technical stuff, making sure the sound system is all working and all that stuff. And they get to see lots of comedy.
Yeah.
To see lots of comedy. So that's the way I see you in your role as a comedy manager at NextUp, because you get to see also, have you seen all the shows on NextUp?
About 80% of them. I'm working my way through the catalogue, but they keep getting more added every week. So it takes a long time to catch up. Honestly, it does. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like I effectively have lucked out into just sort of the perfect kind of position for me where I get to work with great comics like yourself and get to watch amazing shows.
You see, he's trying to recover his position, but let's go on.
I'm waiting for Laughter Republic's SWAT team to just barge through the window.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, and being part of NextUp and being sort of the comedy nerd that I am has really opened up other avenues for me in terms of what I can kind of do in the comedy industry. Like, I was actually part of the sort of judging panel for the Funny Women Heat last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and was in the Birmingham New Faces competition the year before that as one of the judges for that. So yeah, I mean, this thing, it opens up loads and loads of doors for me to kind of just keep growing in the industry and keep getting better and better.
So you're well connected. You can help a president.
Oh, for sure. Just let me know what you need.
So the other thing I know is that I can't remember the names, but there have been comics who were basically working in a club as technical assistants, and because they watched so much comedy, they ended up doing stand-up comedy themselves.
Yeah.
And you've obviously called yourself a comedy nerd. You've expressed who your favorites are. I'm not jealous about that. But do you think that you would ever?
I'm not going to survive the end of this podcast.
Do you think that you'll ever be tempted to go on stage and say yes? I'd like to give it a shot.
If you'd asked me this when I just joined NextUp, I'm sure there'd have been some part of me that was like, yeah, in a year or so, I'll have watched enough. But I reckon I could do a really solid 5-minute set. Could nail. Thinking about it now, not a chance. Knowing how much work goes into crafting, even a singular joke, knowing how much work goes into kind of creating that stage persona.
Yeah.
I know it. Like, I think you get people. I was definitely that person, I guess, before joining, where you're like, oh, comedians, if you've got a funny bone in you, it's natural. It must be easy to write. It must be like, I can sit down for an hour and think of just loads and loads of funny things to say. And it's just not that. It's absolutely not that. There's graft, there's work. It's like, if you talk, I've spoken to so many sort of comics who've done an Edinburgh show and like just afterwards, and it's like months and months and months of trial and error, previews, work in progress, everything they can possibly do to refine that show so that it's perfect. And when I look at it, and I think back to when I was before I joined, thinking about me going, yeah, I probably could have done it. It's laughable now, knowing how hard comedians work to make it look effortless.
Yes.
Yeah, I physically couldn't do it.
I certainly felt that way when I stopped being president and then tried comedy. And I remember the first time I did it and I smashed it, 350 people screaming my name. I thought, that's it, I'm a comedian. And then I died several times before I mastered the craft. So I can.
It's your trial by fire, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, it's a difficult time for comedians, but there are, as far as I'm concerned, there are opportunities. There are opportunities for people to learn new skills, and this is a new skill for me in terms of podcasting as well.
I mean, yeah, I think I mean, after this, the comedy landscape is just changed forever, isn't it? There's no, like, you can't really go back past sort of how much there's been in terms of streaming, virtual gigs, and that kind of thing. You can't just then erase what's happened after that. You can't just go back to the I guess prior to lockdown, there's just live gigs and gigging around. Obviously, we want that to come back, and we want that to be as robust and as diverse as it was before. But the landscape has changed now. There's a huge market for virtual online comedy, and there's a huge swathe of comedy fans that weren't ever able to go to those live gigs, who've now got access and now can see their favorite comedians without ever having to leave their home. And I think that's not going to change now.
And I think that's the challenge. I would almost say that, audiences have now been institutionalized. Why would I want to leave my house when I can be half naked with a bottle of beer and watch Michael McIntyre, Streamline, whoever it is. And I think that's going to be a real challenge when live gigs get back. You're a real household name, and they are real comedy lovers who know that it is different when you're at a live gig. There is this connection. It's just a beautiful connection that I miss. We were talking about jokes. I've just had to bury one of my jokes today because of Biden.
What was the joke?
The joke was about how Donald Trump is.
Let's workshop it. Let's see how we. Let's see if we can get to a real heavy punchline.
It's a joke about an African dictator and comparing myself with Donald Trump. Now that he's left, that joke is dead. It served me well for 4 years, and I buried it. 12 noon.
Actually, I do have a question for you on that. Is there slight disappointment now that Trump's gone? Because he was an open goal comedy topic, wasn't he?
I have been. The lockdown has. Yeah, he was an open goal comic and open goal topic, and I'm sure people are writing very quickly jokes about Biden. They're coming out thick and fast, and that will dominate the next 4 years. I think it depends on where you are in terms of your comedies. So a lot of the stuff about Trump and Biden, politics in particular, as far as I'm concerned, are all topical jokes. So if you're, if that's what you like doing, then that's where you need to go. But the lockdown has made me reflect, my friend, because some people would say that you cracking a joke about a particular politician is very hacky. Because it's so predictable. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. But my view is how you actually deliver the joke and the creativity that you bring to it. If you are just going on and you're just saying, oh, Trump is a bastard, Biden is a bastard, and everyone is saying that, then that's not creativity as far as I'm concerned. But if you are thinking more creative, coming up with creative jokes, I think you can get, you it's not a case of getting away with it. You're very comfortable in your setting, and your comedy persona does it for you. But I think the world will miss Trump because he was an entertainer. He destroyed political satire as far as I was concerned. It felt like
he did. He did.
He felt like
can't satirize what's more ridiculous.
It felt like he had 4 years of a comedy show, a 4 years Edinburgh show. And it went on and on and on and on till the last minute. And I don't know. I think Trump jokes are dead now. I think they are just dead, literally dead. That's my view.
I think there's definitely going to be a side of people who just don't want to ever reference or think about the 4 bleak years of Trump ever again. Sure. There's no one no one wants to relive those days.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. But for me, when you ask the question about Trump, for me, the lockdown has made me reflect, and I've been doing a lot of writing, to show the flaws of democracy. As far as I'm concerned, democracy is a virus, and we need to flatten the curve. It is, because it's not working anywhere. If you look at America, recently accused China of genocide. 400,000 people have died of COVID in America. Is that not genocide? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you didn't have those countries listed close to the number of deaths, you will actually think it's another country that has committed genocide. And that's for me, it's made me think about just why are people so unhappy with democracy? And we'll see what Biden does, because the first thing he's going to do, my friend, which is what politicians do, he's going to reverse the policies of Trump. He's going to sign an executive order. He's already talking about reverse Muslim ban, the nuclear arrangement with Iran. It's as if politics is so simple. Do the opposite of the previous government.
Yeah. Undo all of it and hope what you've done is better.
And hope what you've done is better.
Genuinely, actually, you know what? So the title of this podcast is if you could change the world, what would you do differently?
Yes.
That is something that I was genuinely thinking about that question. And I was like, that's one thing I would happily get rid of if I could change the world. I would get rid of party politics entirely. In its entirety. I think party politics becomes, it's almost like university club vibes. There's something really kind of... Yeah, do you know what? It's like we're part of this group and you're part of that group, and we hate this group for no one's speaking on policies that they genuinely believe in. It's all about what the group collective is thinking. And I honestly, I would happily get rid of party politics and just see individuals who have genuine care and concern and wanting to make a change. If those policies that they have in place as an individual resonate, that's when they become more and more sort of...
I have to agree with you, my friend. And it's really, you know what is really interesting is I come up with all these ideas, and I'm the least democratic leader in the world. In the world. And one of the things I said about Britain, for example, is they always said that the coronavirus was the invisible enemy. We're fighting a war. And you see both parties attacking each other. Why don't you form a government together for this period of crisis and join hands together and collaborate? But and it's rich for someone like me to say that, but I agree with you that
wearing your military outfit, exactly. Yeah, I just had to mentally take a moment to realize this is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And people get and that because I am a benevolent dictator, I care for my people, and that's why I believe politics is not working in any shape or form. What you have is career politicians, people who just want to benefit themselves rather than benefit their people. And they will make false promises. I'm happy for America, but America is not my priority in any shape or form.
No.
But I don't see someone who, and I wasn't a supporter of Trump, but someone who was part of the establishment for 47 years, someone who was vice president for 8 years, I don't see what he's going to be able to do. What they've just done is change the chairs, changed it over. That's all they've done.
Just a switch of color.
Just a switch of color. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. From red to blue.
Well, this is the thing. It's like there's that Chris Rock quote from, I can't remember which special it is specifically, but there's some things that I'm conservative about, there's some things I'm liberal about, and there's no individual person is, as much as some politicians like to imagine that they are, there's no individual person that is fully conservative on all issues or fully liberal or I guess democratic on others. There's always going to be some kind of mismatch of ideas, and it's all based on your experiences. And I think let's do away with those weird camps that you have where I'm wearing red and you're wearing blue and therefore we hate each other. Just get rid of it. Put them in a field, let them fight it out, and once everyone's tired, we go home.
Yeah, and that it creates division.
Yeah, but it's fake division. This is the thing. It's purely fabricated division, purely based on the history of that party. Yeah. There's no as an individual person, I'm sure a Republican and someone from the Democratic Party would absolutely get on an individual level, but because of the party politics, they now dislike each other. If you hear about some Republicans' conspiracy theories about Democrats, it's insane. They think they're lizards, they think they secretly run sex rings, and it's mental when you think about it. It actually comes from party politics. It comes from vilifying the other side of the opposition. Just get rid of all of it entirely. If someone's genuinely worth having as a leader on their own merit, they should be able to show that rather than I'm backed by this party.
EJ, this has been fantastic. We started by talking about your Filipino heritage. You have confirmed about the fact that you're a comedy nerd. I am now fully aware that I'm not one of your favorite comedians. It's okay. I have to learn how to do one-liners.
You absolutely are. I wouldn't be on this podcast if you weren't. Let's just say that.
And we've heard things about NextUp. I wish you every success in your career.
Thank you.
Stop stalking prospective employers.
I can't guarantee that. I'll be honest with you.
For my listeners and viewers, because this will be on YouTube and audio, do you want to say a little bit more about NextUp in terms of what offers they've got for comedy lovers who want to watch comedians and a president on NextUp?
Yes, of course. So yeah, we are a comedy subscription service. You can get us from as little as £5 a month. We're actually streaming majority of the Leicester Comedy Festival in February live into platform for members. So yeah, if you're a big comedy fan, definitely check it out. It's worth the subscription fee, and plus you support amazing acts like President Obonjo. 50% of our subscription fee does go to the acts on the platform. So it's all about really giving back and being part of the industry. So yeah, if you're a comedy fan, NextUp is a guaranteed must-have.
Yeah. So guys, I hope you have really enjoyed this. I certainly have had a fantastic time spending time with EJ. I wasn't planning to last this long, but as you know, with my podcast, if I'm really enjoying it, it lasts an hour. If I find that the guest is boring, I abruptly stop the podcast and I get rid of them very quickly.
I'm only finding out about this for the first time now. I'm just...
So you have done extremely well, EJ. Thanks for spending time with me, and I wish you all the best. Listeners, this is episode, I believe, 27 or 28, but it doesn't really matter. It's 20-something. Some people say I shouldn't call it a shortcast. It's the only dictator podcast, and it's competing with the likes of Joe Rogan rather than Stuart Goldsmith. So this is going to blow up, and my challenge to NextUp and the community manager is making sure that he plugs this as well.
For
so
sure.
Thank you so much, and thank you for listening and watching, and we should be back next week. Thank you.